A Study in Scarlet, 1887. Episode 7, New Beginnings. Welcome back for the final episode of our Study in Scarlet journey, Detective. The Jefferson Hope case is closed, the truth revealed, and justice, though unconventional, has been served. But what happens when the dust settles? Today, you'll witness how this first case transforms Holmes and Watson's partnership and sets the foundation for all future adventures. Picture this. It's 3 days after Hope's death. The morning newspapers are filled with sensational headlines about the mysterious American murders, but they've missed the real story entirely. You're back in the familiar sitting room at 221B Baker Street, where Holmes is organizing his case notes with characteristic precision. "You know, detective friend," Holmes says, carefully filing away Hope's journal, "this case has taught me something profound about the nature of crime and detection." What do you think this first case revealed to the great detective? The complexity of human motivation, the inadequacy of simple justice? Watson enters carrying the morning papers. The press is calling it the Scarlet Murders. They're focusing entirely on the mysterious word, rage, and the poison pills. They've completely missed the 20-year love story. Holmes chuckles. Typical. They want sensation, not understanding. But we know better, don't we, detective friend? We've learned that behind every crime lies a human story, sometimes beautiful, often tragic. This raises an interesting question for you as a developing detective. Should the public know the full truth about Jefferson Hope's motivation, or are some stories too complex for newspaper headlines? "I must admit," Watson continues, "I'm struggling with something. Hope was undeniably a murderer, but I find myself sympathizing with him. Does that make me a poor judge of right and wrong?" Holmes sets down his pen and looks directly at you. What do you think, detective friend? Is sympathy for a criminal's motivation the same as approving their actions? Can we understand without excusing? This is perhaps the most crucial lesson from this case. The world isn't divided into simple categories of good and evil. Even in our very first adventure together, we've encountered moral complexity that challenges easy judgments. "I've been thinking," Holmes says, pulling out a magnifying glass to examine one of Hope's photographs, "about what this case means for our future work. You see, detective friend, most people approach crime like a mathematical equation. Identify the criminal, apply the punishment, case closed. But what has this case shown you about the limitations of such thinking? However," Holmes continues, "true detection requires something more sophisticated. We must understand not just what happened, but why it happened. Not just who committed the crime, but what forces shaped them into someone capable of it." Watson nods thoughtfully. "It's like being a scientist and a philosopher simultaneously." "Exactly." Holmes's eyes light up. "And this is where you come in, detective friend. Every case we tackle together will require this dual perspective. You'll need the scientific mind to gather evidence and the philosophical heart to understand human nature. Think about it. What skills did you develop during this investigation that will serve you in future mysteries?" Holmes walks to his chemistry bench, where various experimental apparatus gleam in the morning light. This case has also confirmed something else: the power of scientific method in criminal investigation. "That little test I performed to detect blood traces? That's just the beginning." He picks up a test tube filled with a reddish solution. "I've been developing new techniques for analyzing different types of ash, identifying paper by its fiber composition, even determining how long a person has been dead by examining muscle stiffness." What do you think about Holmes's scientific approach, detective friend? Can chemistry and observation really solve crimes better than traditional police methods? "The future of detection," Holmes declares, "lies in evidence, not assumption. In observation, not prejudice. In scientific analysis, not political convenience." Watson looks up from his notebook, where he's been scribbling furiously. "I say, Holmes, I've been thinking about writing up this case for publication. The public should know about your methods." This stops Holmes mid-gesture. "Publication? You mean in one of those sensational magazines?" "Not sensational," Watson protests. "Educational. I could show how proper detection actually works, how science can triumph over superstition." What's your opinion, detective friend? Should Watson publish these cases, Or would publicity interfere with future investigations? Holmes considers this carefully. If you write it, Watson, promise me something. Don't make me into some infallible genius. Show the process, the false starts, the corrected assumptions, the collaborative nature of real detection, and always emphasize that what we do can be learned by anyone willing to observe carefully and think logically. Including our detective friend here, Watson adds, gesturing toward you. Absolutely, Holmes agrees. In fact, detective friend, I have a proposal for you. Would you consider joining us for our next case, not as an observer, but as a full partner in the investigation? This is it, the moment you've been building toward throughout this series. Holmes is inviting you to become a permanent member of the detection team. I should warn you, Holmes continues with a slight smile, the work isn't always as dramatic as poison rings and 20-year revenge plots. Sometimes we'll spend days analyzing mud samples or tobacco ash. Sometimes we'll interview dozens of witnesses who saw nothing useful. Detection is often tedious, methodical work. But that's exactly what makes it rewarding, isn't it? The satisfaction of finding truth through patience and careful observation. Watson looks excited about the prospect. 3 minds working together. Imagine what mysteries we could solve. Holmes nods. But remember, detective friend, our goal is never just to solve cases. It's to understand them, to see how human nature operates under pressure, how society shapes individual choices, how the past echoes through the present. As he speaks, there's a knock at the door. Mrs. Hudson enters with a visiting card. Gentlemen, she announces, there's a young woman downstairs, says she needs help with a missing person case. Something about a governess who disappeared and a family treasure that's gone missing too. Holmes and Watson exchange glances. You can feel the excitement building. Another mystery, another chance to test your developing skills. What do you say, detective friend? Holmes asks, reaching for his coat. Ready for our next adventure? This is your moment of choice. Will you step forward into the uncertain world of professional detection? Will you commit to the careful observation, logical reasoning, and moral complexity that real detective work demands? Think carefully. What have you learned about yourself during this investigation? Do you have the patience for tedious evidence analysis? The courage to question authority? The empathy to understand criminals without excusing them? The game is afoot, Holmes declares, using a phrase you suspect will become his signature. But remember, it's not really a game. Real people's lives hang in the balance. Real justice depends on our accuracy and dedication. Watson grabs his medical bag. Shall we go down together? As the 3 of you prepare to meet your next client, you realize this case, A Study in Scarlet, was never just about solving a murder. It was about learning how to see the world with clearer eyes, how to think with sharper logic, and how to balance scientific precision with human understanding. The Jefferson Hope case is closed, but your career as a detective has just begun. What kind of detective will you become? What principles will guide your investigations? How will you balance truth-seeking with compassion? These questions will follow you through every future case. But for now, there's a young woman downstairs who needs help, and the world of mysteries awaits. Are you ready, detective friend, to take your next step into the fascinating, challenging, and eternally surprising world of criminal investigation? The adventure continues.